Welcome to the February 19th, 2025 episode of The Energy Show. I'm energy journalist Markham, and today my guest is Mike Kerr, who is a world-renowned, I swear to God, I'm not kidding you on this,
World
world-renowned
renowned. Are we
speaker.
stretching things, Markham, already?
And now I'd like to introduce Mike Kerr, public speaker from Alberta, who lives in Canmore, of all places. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey, thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Well, we're honored to have you. Look, this is a really different show for us, right? Like we're kind of a nerdy energy, theory and technology and stuff like that. There's not a lot of humor in that. But you and I have been connected forever on social media, particularly
Yes.
on Facebook, and I've learned about your approach to your speaking niche, as it were, is teaching people how to use humor to create different corporate cultures, to make them more productive, to make them, people enjoy going to work, getting along with and I thought, oh man, if you had a toxic corporate culture that you were speaking to, what about the just general culture today in Canada? How toxic that is. And I, you know what? I'll bet Mike would have some tips and some insights that would be of interest to our, and it looks like you do.
Well, let's find out. It remains to be seen.
It remains to be seen. Here's how I'd like to approach this. First of
Yes.
all, let's talk about your general approach to, what you do in terms
Yeah.
of speaking. But then after that, I want to talk about how you got started in this, because you're actually a forester and you came out of the forestry service working in Banff, the national park in Alberta, up in the mountains. It's absolutely gorgeous up there where you live. And how, that's a good story. I want our audience to hear that story. We're going to tell a few Trump jokes, because the guy wants to annex our country. I think it's fair to
We
not
we
only,
just we just can't escape him, can we? We just can't.
well, if we're not booing the American national anthem at hockey games, we're telling jokes at Trump's expense.
Yeah, yeah.
I
It's either
suppose.
laughing or crying at this state, right?
That's right. So let's start with you talking about what it is that you do.
I go into mostly corporations and I talk about workplace culture. I talk about creating more collaborative, innovative, humane, productive workplace cultures. And you're right, a big part of what I talk about is the use of humor in business to drive results. So I talk about this idea that humor helps fuel, helps foster more inspiring, better functioning workplace cultures, but humor also reflects a positive workplace culture. So there's a chicken and egg relationship, right? If you're working in a workplace that you want to show up at, where you feel respected and valued and trusted, and there's open and honest communication and all that good stuff, then it's easy to have a good sense of humor, I think, right? Or easier. So I talk about the role humor can play from a leadership perspective in terms of building teams and being more collaborative, the connections, and there's huge studies in this, the connection between humor and creativity and innovation, because we know ha plus ha equals aha. I talk about humor in terms of managing stress and being more resilient. And I talk about how humor, and I think this is something we could get into, how humor can help you communicate your messages more effectively, especially challenging, difficult messages.
Mike, I give a lot of presentations and keynotes and that kind of thing, and I find that in my stuff, I don't get a lot of opportunity to crack wise during the presentation, but I could be a little witty when I want to be, and it really does help. I mean, when the crowd titters, as it were, and
Titters.
kind of relaxes them, it makes a little connection. So I get that. So. What lessons can we learn from what you teach corporations? What lessons can our audience learn that might help them in today's toxic culture?
Well, certainly the value of bringing your sense of humor along for the ride. When especially when we get into heated discussions, whether it's online with the trolls or with your brother-in-law at the dinner table, humor can help you reduce keep you calm and keep you sane before your head explodes. We know from studies that we trust people more that tend to share a healthy sense of humor, especially humor about ourselves. So if we can learn to laugh at ourselves more when we're having these debates, when they get heated, I think that's a powerful tool to build connections and build trust. And we do, right? That there is this reputation, I think, that environmentalists, those crazy socialist left-wing nut jobs, tend to be overly serious and they're angry all the time and they're frustrated and they're pissed off at the world. So I think bringing more humor to our debates, to our conversations, is an incredibly helpful thing. We know too from studies, and there's a reason, right? There is a reason why the advertising world spends a gazillion dollars researching the effectiveness of humor in ads,
Oh.
and why most award-winning ads have humor in it, because it works. It helps reduce, and this is something that's been shown in the research a lot. When we use humor to deliver a controversial message, a difficult message, it tends to reduce people's counter arguments that automatically formulate in their head. So you start talking to me about some of this energy stuff, and I'm right away, I'm not listening to you, blah, blah, because I'm starting to formulate my response and think of all the reasons why you're wrong. But if you can come and deliver that message with some humor and embed humor into the message, so you, and sometimes it's kind of that metaphor of the old putting the medicine in the
Oh yeah, a spoonful of sugar makes the
spoonful of
medicine.
sugar. That's the phrase I was looking
There we
for.
go.
Yes, helps the message go down easier. Then it has been shown that those counter arguments tend to fall away. And when we get people laughing about something, even if it's really controversial, it's been shown that people tend to be more open-minded about it. They tend to open up their perspectives and consider the possibilities more. So I think that's just one thing, is remember to bring our humanity and our humor. And I do think our humor is one of our most human characteristics of all, right? So it's not always about being a stand-up comedian or telling jokes, but just being able to laugh at ourselves more, find the funny in these difficult situations. And is it not a truism? This is what I tell my audiences all the time, especially when it's senior leaders. Is it not a truism that the more seriously a person takes themselves, the less seriously we all take that person?
Oh
Because
dear.
they're taking themselves so bloody seriously, right? So we're
Mike,
not taking this
I
seriously.
feel seen, man. I feel seen.
I see you. I see you, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The funny thing is, in my relationship, like, my wife Joanne is our videographer and our editor. And so we've worked together for almost 30 years. And we have that kind of, just easy familiarity with our, we joke and laugh
Yeah.
and she's funny. My wife is, she's not around, so I can say this. She's the funniest woman I've ever met.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
That's
bar
awesome.
none. She is so witty. She'll come up, we'll be talking about something, and she'll come up with a bon mot that bam, and it just makes me laugh. And it's been like that for 35 years. And it absolutely helps. This is a personal relationship, but I could see where you could extend that into the relationship with your coworkers, your bosses, customers, all of that.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, and I love that, right? It's not rocket science. We like people who have a good sense of humor. We want to work with people who have a good sense of humor, who don't take themselves too seriously.
This is funny. I had a fellow, it was actually a friend of mine and lives in Edmonton. And I was making fun at my own expense on social media. And he DM'd me and he said, why do you do that to yourself? Why do you? And I said, dude, if you can't laugh at yourself, and I have lots of things to laugh at myself about, you know what? And but there's that other counter argument that you're kind of belittling yourself. You're not taking yourself seriously. It's not an image, that a serious person would want to, convey to an audience. What would you say to that?
Well, the humor researchers have actually classified humor into four different categories.
Oh, of
And
course they have.
of course they have, because they're humor. I actually have gone to humor conferences around the world, the International Group of Humor Studies, and I got to tell you, these are some of the most boring conferences you'd ever want to go to. And they're talking about humor. It just blows my mind. Anyways, they have cataloged humor into four categories. Two of them are positive styles of humor, two of them are negative. So they do break apart this idea of laughing at ourselves into a positive way in terms of that self-effacing humor that shows that you have a healthy ego, right? When you can laugh at yourself in a good way, in a positive way, it shows that you have a healthy ego. You can laugh at yourself when you screw up, when you do a bonehead mistake. You can laugh at the silly things you do, versus the type of humor where you're laughing at yourself, but you're doing it in such a way to ingratiate yourself with a team, say, or you're putting yourself down in a really negative way, to kind of to almost demean yourself. That is not a healthy style of humor. But if you can laugh at yourself in a fun spirited way, it's incredibly healthy. And there's so much research that shows how healthy it is for us mentally, physically, all the benefits that come with that.
This is a great segue. I was going to leave this till a little bit later, but this is a really good segue into the joke that Trump is making, American President Donald Trump, about how Canada is the 51st state.
That
So
is quite the joke.
let
Yes.
me read his social media post about this. So, and I'm quoting, it was a it was a pleasure to have dinner the other night with Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada. I look forward to seeing the governor again soon so that we may continue our in-depth talk on tariffs and trade, the results of which will be truly spectacular for all, because of course, it's Trump, right? And Jerry Butts, who was the head of the prime minister's office, sort of, the prime minister's right-hand man
Right.
uh, up until 2019, 2020, said, you know what, he did that the last time he was president. He joked with the prime minister all the time, joked. Uh, but this is the kind of joke, non-joke thing that he does all the time. There's no fun. He says it's a joke. It's not a joke. I mean, it's not funny at all. Nobody laughs at it. Certainly no Canadians laugh at it. What do we make of that?
Where to begin? You're right. I mean, he's he is not trying to be funny. He does not have the capacity to be funny. And we know this again. And if we want to keep this, in the academic realm, I can cite all sorts of research that talks about how dictators tend to not have a very good sense of humor. They're not known for their chuckles. You
Yes.
think back to Hitler had joke police. You could get in serious doo doo if you were mocking Hitler.
Oh,
Dictators
really?
hate humor because there's power in humor. Humor bonds people. Humor that's why the old idea of how you should never punch down with your humor.
Right.
So in a workplace context, right, leaders have to, I think, embrace that healthy kind of environment where there's sometimes the punchline of jokes, because the frontline employees need to sometimes communicate things in some humorous ways, right? And make those jokes that might seem a little bit, off color, off form, but it's healthy. But conversely, leaders making those same jokes about their frontline employees,
Yeah.
that's not good. That's not healthy. And so we know dictators, we know people who are highly narcissistic do not have a good sense of humor. They are threatened by humor. They do not like to be laughed at, even if it's just a perception that they are being laughed at. And I think that comes shining through with somebody like Donald Trump. We've seen it for years now, where one of the most powerful things we can do, I think, to challenge some of the ridiculous inane policies is to use humor as a weapon, like the late night talk show hosts do, like so many comedians do, because it really is powerful. And it takes us back right to this theory that he perhaps decided to get into politics when Obama was doing the correspondence dinner, which is supposed to be a fun evening, lots of jokes and self-deprecating jokes and lots of humor. And he made some jokes about Donald Trump, and we all saw the reaction from Donald Trump in the audience. And so there is this
Oh,
theory that was the point where he thought, I'm going to run for president and put a stop to fun anywhere.
isn't it funny? I mean, you could imagine this scenario where Donald Trump being insulted by a joke from Obama at a press and leads to the downfall of Western civilization. A
Yeah,
butterfly's wing, flutters someplace,
yeah,
and the
yeah,
whole place
exactly.
goes to hell in a handbasket. Well,
I
look,
know, I know. I would like to ask Obama now. Do you regret making those jokes?
I'll bet he does.
Could you have
Hey,
picked on somebody else who had a thicker skin?
speaking of jokes,
Yes,
I'm going to tell three Trump jokes, and you're going to score them.
I am going to score them.
Okay. And the jokes are cheesy, as you would expect. Right? There's
I would
not there's
expect.
not a good joke that I have to tell, but I'm going to do my very best to make them as funny as they can be, which
Okay.
is probably not very funny. Okay, here we go. Joke number one. What is the fastest way to get Trump to change a light bulb? Tell him Biden installed it.
I'm giving you a 6.8 for that,
Oh,
Markham.
not a 6.9 or a 6.7, but a
No, a
6.8. Okay.
6.8. It was
Well,
6.8.
that's not
It
bad.
was almost a 7. I mean, the old traditional light bulb joke. It's a good, that's a
Yeah,
good,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's a good framework. It's a cute joke. It's cute. It works. It works on a certain level.
Well, you know what? My wife and I, when we're watching a TV show, will often say to us, this show is kind of a 6.5, 7 out of 10. It's okay. We'll watch it, but we're not excited
Right.
about it.
Right.
Okay, so I know where that joke stands
Okay.
and my ability to tell a joke. Okay, here we go. Joke
Your
number
your
two.
telling was very good. The telling was very good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
Well,
the joke.
you're the guest on the show. You have to say that. Okay, joke number two.
Yes.
Last night there was an accident and Trump's personal library burnt down. Can you believe it? This is a huge catastrophe because both, I say, of his books were lost, and he'd only colored in one of them.
Okay, that's we're moving up now. We're moving up. That's an 8.9. That's a good one. I like the
Okay,
delivery.
okay.
You had the little pause, you had the timing thing there. That was good. That was good. I
Good. Well,
mean,
look, I
we could kind of predict maybe where it was going, but still, it was a
it
nice
was
it was a nice
delivered a
joke.
little better than the last one, so
It was
elevated the
definitely better
joke.
than the last. It
Okay.
was better than the last one.
Here comes number three. I hope you're
Okay.
prepared for it.
Okay. I'm prepared.
You
I
don't
need
look like
to
you're prepared. Where'd you go? Oh,
oh,
there he is.
I
Back
need to
again.
clear my whiteboard here. All right.
All right. Abraham Lincoln couldn't tell a lie. Richard Nixon couldn't tell the truth. Donald Trump can't tell the difference.
I see. I don't know if that's funny or just accurate and sad. See, this is where my brain is going. Is it funny or sad? I think I'm going to give that a 7.35.
Oh dear, I've regressed.
You've regressed a little bit. The second, yeah, I think the second joke
Okay.
was the winner. That was the keeper. That was good. That was good. That was more of a historical accurate statement, but it was still good.
We we wrap some truth, we a little bit of sugar with our
we
truth and
we
the
wrap
medicine.
some which is what you can do, right? No matter how complicated the message is, no matter how controversial the message is, we can always, I think, figure out a way to get creative and deliver it with some humor.
Well, I'm gonna have to deliver some information without a joke because MC, our show producer, has been on my case the last two or three shows that I've done on my own. I keep forgetting to provide our contact information because we like to get, and we're starting to get a lot more emails and texts from viewers. So email theenergyshow@gmail.com and spell energy with an I, not a Y. So and text 587-330-5757. That's 587-330-5757. Give us your feedback because I know you're going to love this show. You're probably rolling in the aisles or rolling on your carpet out in front of your TV. I don't know, but enjoying this. I mean, this is a little different. This is much better, Mike. I got to say, this is a much more enjoyable conversation than talking about ultra heavy sour crude in demand in American refineries.
That is a hard topic to make sexy. I have to admit that's one thing we have to do, right? Too. I also like that word. In fact, I read it in an article a while ago. When we talk about some of the changes in energy that are happening, the transition, things like electric cars are sexy to a certain point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's a sexy topic, but heat pumps not so sexy, right? So how do we figure out how to make some of these boring, dry topics a little sexier to get people excited about them?
Well, okay. As a heat pump owner, we've had them now for
Well,
3 years, and it's really improves the comfort of your home. It's so much nicer. The heat isn't coming on in blasts. Remember, when you have a gas furnace, it comes on and you get a big whoosh of hot air and it warms it up and then it cools down, another whoosh of hot. It's not like that. It's much more even. You get a nice even
Yeah.
temperature in the
Right.
summertime when it's hot out because you've got air conditioning, and your bills are lower. It's like your electric car, which you have an electric car story. Tell us your electric car
I,
story.
I, I do, but I was gonna say that's you're getting me a little excited there. That was some sexy talk about heat pumps. And look,
Oh
it's got
my.
pump right in the word and heat. How could it not be sexy? So yes, I've had an electric car for I don't know 5 years now. We just traded up for an Ionic. We absolutely love it. It
Ionic
works.
5 or Ionic 6?
The Ionic 5.
Oh. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it is a love. If you've never driven an electric car, they are just fun to drive. Like they're so quiet. There's no maintenance. The maintenance I have to do is I don't even think I've done it yet once, is put in windshield fluid. That's it. And you're kind of done, right? They have all the bells and whistles. They're so safe. They drive great in the cold. Here's the funny thing that just it drives me nuts when everybody always talks about, oh yeah, good luck having an electric car with the cold weather. Well, I'll tell you what, the number of times I have had to rescue my friends who do not have electric cars because their cars would not start in
Ha!
the minus 25 weather. But guess whose car would start in the minus 25 weather? And so I was the one who would go and rescue them in my electric car. So it works great in the winter. Yes, you lose some battery range, but they are awesome cars. And of course, and the money that we're saving in gas and maintenance, it's a sexy car too. I have to say.
Well, I'm a big fan of the Ionic 5, and if I, eventually when we buy one, it'd probably be something like that. But I wanted to tell you, because I really need to desexify this conversation in a hurry, because I'm going to talk about theory now. But when people are buying new technologies, they consider four variables: what it costs to buy, what it costs to operate, the risk involved, and value. And value is a non-economic consideration. And so when you say, "Oh my God, it's such a wonderful car to drive, it's acceleration and it handles great, and I go out in the winter and it just goes because it doesn't have to start anything, right? You're just
Yeah.
applying electricity to the electric motor. That works. I can preheat it. All of that stuff is value that
Mm-hmm.
you put. So some people will put a high value on the things that you do. Some won't. Some won't,
Right.
and just not yet. And so they tend to
Sure.
be further up the curve in terms of adoption. And then risk. So people say, they hear that you lose a lot of power out of your battery, and they go, "Ooh, that's risky. What if I needed to go 500 kilometers
Right.
and now I can only go, 250, or I
Right.
can't find a charger?" But whereas you maybe are not driving 500 kilometers, you're not driving to Vancouver a lot. And so you go, you know what? I only drive 40 kilometers a day. And maybe I go into Calgary, which is, what's that? 100 kilometers, 100.
Yeah,
Those,
130. Yeah, it
yeah,
easily gets me to Calgary and back, and I run around all over Calgary and get back still with charge in the battery.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I totally get it. And so you just sexed up the electric car, and I desexed it in a hurry.
You just
Yeah,
took the
I
sex right
pricked
out
the
of there,
balloon, man.
buddy.
That's this is what I do.
This is what you do. This is how you roll. You go into any situation, any room, and the sex is all gone.
Yeah,
No more sexiness.
no, nobody has ever accused me of being sexy.
You're a sexy. Well, no, I better watch what I'm going to say now. A sexy drainer, a sexy
My
sucker, a
wife is not far away, so yes, keep your voice down. Okay, so
yeah,
we're going to talk a little bit about issues that I see you posting about on social media, and how humor might help in those. A big one, and then you just posted about this yesterday: conspiracy theorists, the anti-science crowd.
yeah,
My God, like I have a lot of friends who complain about that because you can't engage with these people.
yeah.
It's like, cult members. And of course, this is where Trump comes in. The MAGA crowd, the Make America Great crowd, is considered, I think we're getting close to calling that a cult these days. So what would you do? How would you approach those kind of folks?
Well, it's not easy. And I've gotten into some heated debates in person with even a few friends. Online, I try, and I think you know me well enough, and you've probably seen me respond to enough people that I think I do a pretty good job at trying to take my emotions out of it because I'm human. I get pretty pissed off at some of the nonsense that people post, and so it would be easy to just go in and rant at these people, right? But we know that that's not going to help. So I try to take a conciliatory approach, try to keep it fact based. Um, I responded to an anti-vaxxer who I know in person just the other day, and I did a long post to it. And I even started off very respectfully by saying, "Hey, I totally get that you are really concerned about the safety of children, and I respect that. We all are. We all should be concerned about the health of our children. However," and then I got into some counter arguments, and I try to be very factual. I try to connect some links and provide some sources for them, and just suggest politely that here's some things that they could read. I have to say that the majority of time when I do that, I rarely, if ever, hear back from the person.
Oh,
Um,
that's interesting.
yeah, and I don't know if it's because I like to think, I mean, sometimes they're probably pissed off at me and they've unfriended me, and that's fine. But I think sometimes it is because I hope that I've laid out such a good argument in depth that at the very least, it gives them pause. And the reason I respond to some of these too, and sometimes at great length, is I'm very aware that I'm probably not, the odds of me changing this person's mind is minuscule. They've gone down that rabbit hole. They haven't used facts and evidence to come to the position where they're at now. So facts and evidence aren't necessarily going to back them out of that. We know this. However, I still take the time to respond to those because I think it's the right thing to do. It's the ethical thing to do in my mind these days, because misinformation, disinformation is one of the hugest challenges we are facing on the planet. And I'm aware of the other eyeballs that are reading this. So there could be
Yeah, that's
hundreds of other people that are still going to see my response. And maybe some of those people are further along, they're on the fence, but they need that little nudge. And I think too that silence is complicity. If we do not start, all of us, speaking up and responding to some of the misinformation, and at least presenting the alternative side, then we have lost.
that you raise a good question about who is your audience when you're having a debate online. And I acknowledged a long time ago that it's not the person I'm debating,
Right.
it's the people who are watching. They're lurking or they're going to comment later on down the road. And I don't think I don't think I'm telling tales out of school to say that Brett Wilson, and for those of you who don't know Brett Wilson, he's a very, very well-known oil and gas financier who's made a very neat fortune and a philanthropist. I mean, let's be fair to Brett. And he was on the Dragon's Den for a long time. So he was well-known across Canada. And but he got himself into trouble. 4 or 5 years, 6 years ago, he was talking about hanging eco-terrorists from trees, and it didn't go down well. And so he got this reputation as being sort of a nasty troll kind of thing. So we've tangled for the better part
I,
of a
I
decade.
thought you guys were really close. I just don't see it.
You've read some of my Facebook threads, but here's the thing. I've approached Brett from a variety of different, and the one that I think it's my default, and this is kind of a confession of mine, like, given the fact that you've laid out a much better approach. My approach to somebody like Brett, and I run into Bretts all over the place, as you can well imagine. I'm a bit of a target. I get sarcastic.
Yeah, yeah,
I get caustic. I make it personal sometimes because they I don't respond well to aggression.
yeah,
Like, if I'm an old hockey player, you hit me, I take your number, you're going to get two back,
right,
down the road.
right.
And and I've pulled back from those kinds of discussions because I don't like doing it.
Yeah,
It doesn't make me feel good.
No.
And it does satisfy to some extent, people who are watching and they're mad and they go, "Hey, Markham, he's standing up and he's taking on this guy." And,
It
you
feels
know,
cathartic for the rest of
yeah,
us, right? Yeah. Yeah.
and it does for about 5 minutes
Yeah.
and then it doesn't anymore. And I
And
see
then
the
you feel
risk.
dirty.
Well, you feel soiled
Yeah.
deep down in your soul.
Yeah.
Right. So I see your point. I see your point. And there's a value to rethinking our approach to this, like
Yeah.
being mindful of how we approach others on social media.
Yeah.
And I would have to say that, I've been on doing this for, 15 years that we've been on Facebook or Twitter. And it's only lately that I've been being more conscious, more mindful. How am I going to respond to this person instead
Yeah.
of, doing it with, just because they did something made me mad, I
Yeah.
respond angrily. That's not a good way to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, and I forgot to mention perhaps one of the most important things I try to do too, because we were talking about it earlier, is I always try to. I don't always, but 98% of the time, I do try to weave in some humor. Even if it's in a list, I'll have these serious things, then I'll put in something that is just totally out of left field, that's just wacky, that's silly, might be self-deprecating about me, just something to lighten up the mood, right? Or I'll definitely try to end on a light note, where I'll have something funny at the very end, just to leave it on that positive note. But yeah, this idea, sarcasm comes from the Greek word what is it? Sarcos. Um, it loosely translates to
a Greek
tear at
word.
flesh like a dog.
Oh,
So
ouch.
so not the healthiest form of humor, but it's understandable why we go there, right? Because it's a great go-to response sometimes.
Well,
Sometimes,
sometime it would probably have its place.
yeah,
But I think your argument is the better one, is to use humor in a deliberate way
yeah.
to diffuse tension, to draw them in, to all of the benefits that you just described.
For
Okay,
sure,
so
for sure. And one of the things I just before we leave this topic, one of the things I always try to remind myself of is, and I'm pretty sure I could say this. I don't think I have ever written a post on social media that I would be embarrassed if somebody put it up on a PowerPoint slide in the middle of one of my presentations
oh
to a corporate client. I
wow.
don't think I've ever written one where I would feel embarrassed or sheepish and have to go, yeah, that was not my best day. So I try to look at it through that lens.
Well,
That
you're a better
lens.
man than I, Gun
Yeah.
Gadin, because
Now,
I can
now I
tell you.
haven't always. I just recently, and just recently, I did drop the F bomb for the very first time on social media because it was just one of those head numbing
I
comments
hear
that,
you.
yeah.
But I would have to say I cannot run for political office in Canada because they would they would
None of
dredge up
us
my
in this
social
era
media
can
posts.
run for political office, Markham. Like they, they're gonna dig out something from 15 years ago. I don't see
Oh
how
yes,
anybody
but
can run.
there's something, and then there's some things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
It would be a very big slide deck if they took all of my social
yeah.
media points that I might be slightly embarrassed about. So I just have reconciled myself not to run for
Yeah.
elected
Yeah.
office. Well, you know what? We've kind of come to the end of the show, Mike. This has been a very interesting conversation. I think there's lots of good ideas that we've talked about and you've explained that people can take away and do something with. Um, if you had a couple of tips for viewers that you'd like to leave them with, what would they be?
I guess first and foremost, just as things seem to be getting increasingly insane out there and stressful and chaotic and uncertain, we know one of the most powerful things we can do in times of uncertainty is to be curious about the world, be curious about one another. So looking at all of this through a lens of curiosity helps us, and we know from research, helps us be more resilient, helps us manage our stress better, and helps us be more open-minded to listening to other people's arguments and wanting to learn more about what the heck is happening. So, that would be one of my big wishes for everybody. And number two, and this may sound like pablum and a little cheesy, but I think more than ever we've got to put our humanity first, and just remember the importance of being good humans right now more than ever. We need good people. We need good people. We need compassion and empathy and patience. And all wrapped into that is our sense of humor like never before.
You got me with that one, buddy. That's yeah. Okay, that's what you're talking directly to me when you say that. Trust me. But look, Mike, thank you very much for this. This has been lovely chatting with you, and we'll probably have you on later on because I think things are going to get worse rather than get better. So
Well, there's a cheery thought to end on.
exactly right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Markham. Thank you. It's been fun.